Hello and welcome to the Career Corner, where we answer your career cues. I'm your host, Lukas Kauffman, and today I am joined by Anya Watkins and Ashan Chandrasena to talk about being a student athlete. Anya and Ashan, welcome to the Career Corner.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you guys here today. So we're going to jump right into things. We're talking about being a student athlete and what's that like, answering some questions for current and prospective students. Jumping right into things, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience as a student athlete? And we can start with Ashan.
So I'm a current sophomore. I'm on the men's varsity rowing team or crew team. And typically I didn't do a sport before coming to college. I walked on to the team. I think that's an interesting concept that Ithaca has here. Students that haven't done it before can walk on, and if they like it, continue to do it. It's my second year doing it, and I'm having a blast. I'm a politics major with minors in writing, education, and women and gender studies. In terms of how the sport just generally plays out, our off season is the fall, which is when students come in. So it's a good adjustment time period for people to get used to it, whether they've done it in high school or they're just starting out for the first time. It's a good time frame to adjust to the sport and being in college. And then our racing season is in the spring, where we typically have a training camp during spring break. And we're usually away during the weekends for races out of state or here at the Ithaca College Inlet and Boathouse.
Incredible.
I'm Anya. I'm a junior business administration major with concentrations in finance and management. I also have a minor in business analytics, and I'm on the women's basketball team. So we are a winter sport, so we also get that time period in the beginning of the year to kind of adjust to school life when we first get here, that I found very beneficial when I first got here.
Incredible. And you guys are both doing sports. Are either of you pursuing sports as a career, or are you just participating in them in now while you're in college to kind of be doing a sport and an activity?
Yeah, I this is kind of my last go at sports. I've been playing basketball since I was probably like 3 years old. And I was lucky enough to get recruited and play at the collegiate level. But it will not be a career for me.
Gotcha.
Kind of the same as I mentioned, I didn't play a sport in high school. And I wanted to try something new when I came to Ithaca College and tried out rowing. And I feel like as fun as it is, I definitely think it'll be high chance a collegiate thing and more of a passion than like a full-time job once I leave college.
Yeah. So at Ithaca, you don't need to be pursuing sports as a career to participate.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Amazing, amazing. So you've both mentioned how much kind of time you spend in your respective sport. You know, you're taking up weekends. There's time in spring break. You're training. Uh, what strategies have you found most effective for managing your time and balancing your academic life with your athletic life?
Yeah, so typically the way that rowing training works, it's gone through a few changes with regulation changes, but typically we look at 6 days of practice a week. So that's Monday to Saturday. Saturdays are typically morning slots. It's usually the earliest they would have it is maybe 6:37, and the latest it will go to is 12 in the afternoon. During the week, we can sometimes have double training sessions where in the morning we will have 6:30 till around 8:30, so that students can make their 9 a.m.s, and then in the afternoons it's usually where 4:15 to around 6:37 p.m. Obviously, those depending on the athlete's schedules. We're typically told to not have a class before 9 a.m. or have classes that go beyond 3:50, 4 p.m., just to make it easier to plan stuff out. That being said, if multiple students have conflicts due to their majors, our coach will move stuff around that typically, like if there's a lot of conflicts in the afternoon, we'll try to have a morning practice or vice versa. In terms of managing, it would definitely be planning things ahead. So once you know you're going to do a sport, I walked on. So my first semester wasn't built around doing a sport. But then in the following semesters, kind of planning it around that, giving me enough time to, for example, if I have a class, change and then so I can get back to my dorm, change and go to practice. Or if not, figuring out what I would need to leave the room with when I leave in the morning so that I can go to practice straight after class. Also fully utilizing any of the resources that are there, like planning yourself out, being ahead of assignments. Definitely depend, like having a calendar, kind of like blocking those time slots off so you know what to expect. Following up with like professors and coaches and seeing like how your syllabus and your training schedule like may have possible conflicts, especially for us in the spring with racing. We do travel. And the other thing is also just, I know a lot of student athletes have either like within the team, unofficially, they'll get together and meet. I know the rowing team does this, but usually in the evenings after practice, because the library is open quite late, we'll get together and just all of us will be studying our own things, but we'll get together because it kind of makes us want to like get together and do homework where you might want to just go to sleep after practice. And in our season currently in the spring, we usually have a study hall every Sunday for 3 hours where athletes, if you're struggling in classes, you have to attend to like kind of help you out.
Incredible.
Yeah, we are also very similar with like scheduling classes. We kind of tell people not to try and not have classes between 4 and 8 p.m. because that's usually when our practices are during season. But to manage my time, I really like using calendars, whether it's like a paper one or like an online one. I use Outlook a lot to kind of put my workouts in, even out of season, like postseason lifts and pickups and stuff like that. Those all go in the calendar, any meetings, just so that you can visually see all the things you have to do in a day. I also like to-do lists, just so you get to check things off and you kind of know what you have to do on a certain day. And one thing that my team did this year, it was the first time we did it, but I found it really helpful, was our coaches made a calendar on like our phones, like that we could have on our phones, that had every practice, every lift, every meeting that we might have, people's birthdays, like anything you could think of that like all of us experienced on the basketball team was in the calendar. And so like every time I went on my phone, I would just be like, oh, let me check the calendar and see what time practice is. And it was updated whenever something changed, which I found to be really helpful throughout this year. But it's definitely a challenge managing school, your sports, homework after school. But it feels like practices or workouts are like a break from the school and work aspect. So, like getting homework done definitely doesn't feel too tedious, I guess, most times because you don't have a ton of time to do other things. So you're kind of forced to like get everything done as fast as you can. And I think honestly, having a sport has made me better with time management. It makes it easier.
Yeah, amazing. So even with all that scheduling and organizing, as much as you plan, that can still be really stressful managing all that time. So how do both of you maintain uh mental health and like a positive well-being for yourself outside of, balancing your school and sport life? Just how do you keep good in your own head?
I would definitely say we have CAPS as a resource here on campus, so it's the Center for Counseling, and our coach on the team does recommend that that's something we go to, especially because of how overwhelming things can be, even if athletes have like no, like athletes will say they don't have anything going on and they'll be fine and they can manage it. Our coach usually does recommend doing that. Also, from like a school side of things, our coach has check-ins with us. As first years, he kind of does a check-in every 2 weeks. As you go further at IC, he'll have check-ins like after midterms and finals and at the end of the semester. Our coach also is like very open to have conversations, whether it's about struggles like in class, struggles during practice, that kind of stuff, very open about those kinds of things. And also, we have mental health days where we don't need to be sick or anything like that. But if we know we're having an off day and need a day off, stuff like that, we can just tell our coach, I need a mental health day. And he'll be like, yeah. And then he'll have a check in after that to see whether we're okay. But like that day, it's like a no questions asked. You can have a day off kind of thing. Which I think is really good because there can be days that it's overwhelming. In terms of like personal practices that I do, our team does hang out a lot, even like if it's not the entire team, it's like smaller groups kind of. I think that's really good because like we can talk things through, we understand kind of very similar situations as athletes and how we each handle it. Even and with Ithaca, like there's a bunch of like if it's going hiking, a walk in the commons, a walk around campus, a simple like jog on the rec trail, that kind of thing, just hanging out. The men's rowing team has like a bunch of different things that they do for fun in their pastime. There was a D&D campaign at one point. There's Magic the Gathering, people just like working out together, grabbing a meal with friends, even if there's no practice on a day there's no practice. And I also, small things I do on my own is kind of listening to music, journaling, trying to plan things out, even if a day has a lot of stuff going on and it's overwhelming, kind of breaking that day down even further, seeing what stuff like really needs to happen right now, what other stuff doesn't really need to happen. Like sometimes I'll like have 6 events that I want to go to because like they're interesting to me, but like I'll make a call like going like, yes, this sounds fun, but at the same time I kind of need to sleep now. Or if I don't go to this event, I can get my homework done sooner and I can like rest and relax. So I think it's definitely making a call there. And when you can't make those calls, knowing who to reach out to, our coaches make it a point to say that they are a point of contact for us if we ever have any problems. We have an academic advisor for the men's rowing team, which is a new thing. So anything very specific to being an athlete, like registration, scheduling, that kind of stuff. So I would definitely say using all those resources is kind of like how we would balance things out. Yeah.
Amazing.
I have a lot of the same resources as Ashan. My freshman year, my coach had weekly check-ins with us that were mandatory, but we talked nothing about the sport, and it was kind of just our social life and school, I guess, sometimes. But it was really just to kind of bond with coach and like build a relationship, so that when we got older and we didn't have those required meetings, that we would still come and talk to him about whatever we needed to, whether we were struggling. We also have mental health days that we can use, no questions asked. We have an academic advisor for any school problems. But I think some things that I do to take care of my mental health are to like take a little bit of time for myself each week, because I know with school and sports it feels like you have no time to do what you want. But especially on the weekends, because we usually get Sundays off too, especially during the season. I like to do things for myself, whether it's go for a walk and listen for a podcast or listen to a podcast, do self-care, like paint my nails, do a hair mask or something, read, just like things that I don't get to fit into my weekly days with like classes and practice. I make sure I prioritize on those Saturdays and Sundays where it's not as filled. And I also have a therapist that I talk to regularly, and I think that's a great way for, even if I'm not feeling overwhelmed, I realize that it's kind of built up and just like on the back of my mind because I'm so busy and I don't necessarily think about it. So those sessions also give me a chance to like let everything out and kind of reset.
Amazing. Now, I think you both mentioned this at the beginning when you were talking about yourselves, but you're not on intramural teams. You're on like full like JV or varsity teams for rowing and basketball.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. So that brings me to my next question here. What was the tryout process like? How did you end up getting on that team, and what was the process like of, and especially for you, Ashan, since I know you were a walk-on, but we can start with Anya. What's it like trying out for the women's basketball team?
Yeah, so my process kind of started in high school. My junior year, it was actually COVID, so it was different than it is probably now. But I think I can't remember, but for basketball, you play in a lot of basketball tournaments in the off season where coaches get to see you and they kind of reach out. I know some people make like highlight tapes and send those in. And so it's kind of a mix of how the coach finds you or you find the coach. But after that, you kind of talk to them a little bit, catch a feel for what the team is like, what the school is like, how you like the coach. And I was talking about six-ish schools my junior year, and it narrowed down to like really two my senior year. And like there were so many factors that went into where I was going to school, but I knew I wanted to play basketball. I knew I didn't want to be too far away from home, and I really liked my coach. He just seemed like he had great priorities, really cared about you as a person before you as the athlete. And so I ended up committing, I think April or May of my senior year. And I didn't really have to try out, I guess, like watching me on film and like talking to me was kind of how they made the decision. But then when I got there, I mean, it's just another level. So you still have like you always have to continue to prove yourself. And so like I was just coming from high school playing against high school girls. So I guess the tryout process for like playing time was just during practice, and kind of being a hard worker there, to show that you deserve a spot on the team.
Incredible.
Yeah, for me, as a walk-on, it's kind of like you don't need to have prior experience for it. Like you don't even have to have done a sport before. Walk-on groups are usually a mix of people who were athletes in high school but want to try something new and people who haven't done anything before. We have an intro to rowing course that's like half a credit that you're given, and like it's 2 weeks long, and you'll go to it, you'll learn the basics of rowing, like the motions, what the commitment looks like. You'll get to see the boathouse and that kind of stuff, meet the team, and then you can decide to commit. And even after you commit, there are people who have stopped because it's a bit much. But in terms of like a standing, in terms of like fitness and stuff like that, the first year walk-ons don't have to do anything. Like we'll like do the workouts, we'll train, we'll do all that. But when we choose to return sophomore year, we fall into qualify as varsity. In the fall, we do a duathlon, which is a 5K erg, a 5K run, and a 5K erg. And then based on that, we have to hit a certain split to be considered varsity and then be allowed to go into the onto the water. The reason it's a 5K is our fall races are 5K. So our coach kind of has a standard there to kind of like if you're gonna race, you have to be able to hit this split. That being said, if you don't hit that split, it doesn't mean you're cut. It just means you're put on land to build up your endurance and your strength because we are coming off the summer to retake that 10K and then see if you can get in. The spring doesn't typically have the duathlon like in the fall. However, we do have a lot of testing pieces, such as like a 2K, because our spring races are 2K, and 20-minute pieces and stuff like that. And we also have max testing in the weight room. And though those stuff don't count towards whether you get to be on the team or not, it does play a role in like what boats you make and whether you get a chance to row and stuff like that. From a walk-on perspective, that's kind of how it is. From what I know, a few of my friends were recruited. How it works is typically similar to what Anya mentioned. There'll be regattas that happen in high school. Coaches will attend. A perfect example we have is like New York State's Head of the Fish in Saratoga Springs, where you have both high schoolers and collegiate athletes. So their college coaches will technically scout out good athletes and reach out to them, or those athletes will reach out to the coaches. And typically they'll have a visit where they come to campus, see how they mesh with the team, what that's like, get a tour of campus. If they want to take a class in a field that current members of the team are in, we'll try to get them to sit in on that class so they get an idea of what the professors are like here. And then typically even though they are first years like a walk-on would typically be, or most walk-ons are, they would have to do the duathlon because they have been recruited and meet that standard to be varsity. And in the case of our coxswains, who are the ones who like guide our boats, navigate it, and instruct us, they give usually tape, like audio tapes of their calls and stuff like that to their coaches. But I think it's mainly just like talking to the coach and reaching out. The coach will reach out to them or they'll reach out to the coach and like they'll have a discussion of what it looks like. And that's kind of how it goes.
Amazing. Thank you both for sharing that process with us. And believe it or not, we're almost already at the end of the interview, which is crazy. It's flying by. We've got about 10 minutes left to wrap up here. So I'll ask you one question and then I'll ask you one final kind of two-parter question. So for our sort of third to last, depending on how you think about it, question, how does being a part of a sports team contribute to your overall college experience, socially, academically, however you look at that?
I would definitely say that I would have a very different experience at Ithaca if I wasn't on the sports team. I don't think I would have met a lot of the friends that I have right now. I wouldn't have a lot of the skills that I have right now. Like I wouldn't be able to get stuff done the way I get stuff done. I'm an international student, so I didn't like know anything. I didn't know a lot about like I know that I've never visited Ithaca before or like been in the area. I think like I've mainly been in California. So like coming here was like a culture shock and like all this stuff. And I think the team definitely gave me the stability I needed and kind of defined my place on campus on a team. I think is a big thing. Like with the walk-ons that I walked on with, I'm currently roommate with one of the walk-ons I walked on with. And like he's one of my best friends. And a bunch of my other close friends are all on the rowing team or were on the rowing team at one point. And I think that's really helpful because it's a very supportive environment that we have on the team. Like we'll help each other out. Like seniors and juniors will help the first years and sophomores will help the first years. And kind of like if we're similar majors, they'll talk to you and that kind of stuff. They'll look out for you, like on a mental well-being aspect of it. If they think you're struggling or if you have like health issues and stuff like that, they'll look out for you. Personally, myself, I've been injured for most of the season because of an injury over the summer, and because of that, I haven't really been able to row. But that being said, I am there every day, and the team is very supportive, and like they have my back and that kind of thing. And I know that that's very helpful. And I don't think I'd be able to have such a positive mindset and get through the days if I didn't have that. And from a social side of things, there's like a lot of team events that happen that we have fun with. We had the men's team went for paintball last semester. There'll be like group dinners. People will host people if they live in like a garden or a circle, they'll host people there. So it's like a very inclusive group that makes you kind of like find your place. And even if like you don't find it right away, you'll definitely find the people in your like who mesh with you and find your groups, and definitely it'll support you at your time at IC.
Incredible.
Yeah. For me, it's very similar to Ashan. Um, I've met so many friends and people through sports, like not even just on my team. I mean, the girls on my team are basically like family now. We spend so much time together, do things outside of practice or games. We're actually going to my coach's house for a dinner next weekend. So like it really is just like a family with the people you're on a team with, but you also being like an athlete get opportunities that other students don't get. Like I'm a part of SAC, which is like the Student Athlete Advisory Council. And I've met so many athletes from other teams who have like the same passions to make D3 sports better at our school. And it's been really cool to work with them. Leadership Academy, learning how to become a better leader for your teammates and for yourself. And those things kind of transfer to the academic world too. Like I feel like there are so many things that sports have taught me that have helped me so much in the classroom. And honestly, there's things in the classroom, like I'm a management major, so I learn a lot about working in teams and making effective teams. And a lot of that I try and apply to being on my basketball team, which has been really cool to kind of apply what I'm learning in the classroom to something that really matters to me. That's not necessarily work experience, but it's still application, which I found really cool.
Amazing. So here we are. We're at the final two-parter question here, and so just really briefly, because we've got not a lot of time, and I would want to get a good answer out of both of you guys here. So, final question: are there any lessons that you've learned while being a part of sports at Ithaca College? And do you have any last bits of advice for students looking to pursue a career in college athletics? And we can start with you, Anya.
Definitely. I've learned so many lessons from just many different experiences on the court and off the court. But I guess one of the biggest things I've learned is like about perseverance and having a strong work ethic that applies to both the court or field, whatever sport you play, or the water and the classroom. Just pushing through those difficult times where others might quit, and I think sports teaches you to have such a strong work ethic and to be able to overcome those obstacles because you face so many in your time as an athlete that it just becomes so natural that it becomes an asset to your personality. And I guess you as an employee, you as a teammate, you as a player, that that's one of the biggest things I think I've taken away from being a student athlete. And I see that in every aspect of my time here at Ithaca College. One piece of advice I have is to take care of yourself as a person first. You're always a person before you're a student athlete. And so just make sure you're taking the time to be okay in your head, If you're having a rough day, tell somebody about it. Talk about your problems. Do the things that you know will make you happy, because you're not going to be your best student or your best athlete if you're not your best person.
Kind of hard to follow that up. But definitely in terms of something I've learned while being an athlete, especially as someone who wasn't an athlete before, I think there's a lot more that goes into it than just the training. I think like there's a lot in terms of mindset and skill. I don't think even athletes sometimes don't realize how much goes into it. And to say that you're a student athlete is a big thing, especially at the collegiate varsity level. Because not only are you like studying, pursuing a degree and stuff like that, but you're also working out, dedicating your time, working with other people that you have never met prior to this. And I think that showcases a lot about you as an individual. I think it's a good way to learn about yourself as well. You kind of learn how far you can push yourself, what your limits are, when to ask for help, how to ask for it, like stuff like that, I think is very important. And I think this experience as a student athlete gives you that opportunity. It's given me that opportunity. I think I've learned a lot more doing it at the collegiate level than I think I would have even at high school. In terms of advice I would give to people is I would say try doing something. Like it doesn't even need to be a sport. I would say join a club, join a club sport if you don't want to do a varsity sport. Join a sport that have walk-ons and even try it out for like a semester or 2 semesters. Because I think you can learn a lot more. I think a lot of people hear varsity sport and they go, oh my God, I'm going to be like training all the time and like I'll be exhausted. But I think there's so much more that you get out of it and that you learn from it and you learn about yourself. I know a lot of the stuff that I want to pursue now, I learned after becoming a student athlete. So I think it's very important to try things. I would say don't discount yourself too early. Go out and give it a try. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for coming on the Career Corner and sharing your experiences and your advice, your wisdom, and answering all my silly little questions.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
It's been incredible. And folks at home, you do not have to wait for our next episode to get career guidance. You can visit Drop-In Hours every weekday from 11 to 2 in Muller Faculty Center 101. I'm Lukas Kauffman, and this is Career Corner.